The morning started with silence. At 7:02 a.m., Ukrainian operators watched through a stealth drone feed. By 7:03, the world's most feared Soviet-era tank was nothing but fire and spinning wreckage. What the North Koreans didn't know was that every inch of ground they were driving on had already been mapped, mined, and wired into an orchestration of destruction. This isn't just another battle. It's the story of how patience and planning rewrote the rules of mechanized warfare. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. What looked like the thunderous arrival of 150 modern battle tanks was in fact the beginning of their destruction. Steel tracks churned across frozen soil, engines roared in unison, and the ground vibrated like an approaching storm. Yet inside the command shelter miles away, the atmosphere was not panic, but silence. Drone operators adjusted lenses and watched the armored column crawl slowly, but confidently, toward a field marked on their screens with invisible red zones. Every operator knew what had been buried there over the past months. The enemy did not. The column moved with the kind of arrogance that comes from mass. Tanks stretched in a line that seemed to have no end. Infantry vehicles tucked between them, radios chattering in distorted bursts. Their commanders believed numbers alone gave safety. Ukrainian defenders waited for the first tank to cross the grid line that marked the edge of the mine corridor. Years of NATO training had prepared them for this moment. Nothing in the movement was spontaneous. It had all been mapped, rehearsed, and calibrated like an orchestra waiting for the first note. The design of the kill zone took months of engineering. Underground tunnels housed sensors that detected vibration, while mines layered in strips sat beneath frozen soil, ready to hit both treads and underbellies. Several of the devices were tuned to trigger copper slugs that could slice upward through hardened armor. The arrangement wasn't random. One set aimed for the lead vehicles, another for the rear, with a center belt set to detonate in sequence. Once activated, entire sections of the field would turn into a machine for dismantling mechanized units in waves. At exactly 7:03, when the first seismic trigger registered the weight of passing armor, a shaped charge fired. A jet of molten copper punched upward and split the turret of a T-90 as neatly as a tin can. From the drone feed, the blast looked like a sudden flower of sparks blooming from steel. The rest of the column didn't stop. Confused commanders believed they had witnessed a single lucky strike from a hidden team with a portable launcher. Orders came over the radio to push harder, to outrun whatever ambush they assumed was ahead. That decision sealed their fate. By accelerating into the minefield, more tanks crushed trigger plates in rapid succession. Explosions began erupting not in isolation, but across the breadth of the formation. One tank slewed sideways with both tracks sheared. Another ignited as its fuel cells cooked off. Smoke poured upward in black columns, obscuring visibility, while operators back in the command center adjusted drone feeds to track destruction from multiple angles. Every move was cataloged. Every ignition passed instantly to artillery crews watching and preparing their own opening fire plans. The advantage wasn't only engineering. Real-time intelligence tight to every second meant Ukrainian officers could react faster than opposing crews. From overhead, stealth drones relayed positions of damaged vehicles, highlighted weak points in the formation, and even flagged the commander's vehicles as they attempted to inch backward. Operators didn't need to guess. Coordinates appeared in live overlays. The enemy's response lagged by minutes while disorganization spread inside clouds of burning diesel. By 7:07, barely 4 minutes after the first strike, the results were staggering. 45 armored tanks and support vehicles were scattered in flames, abandoned or immobilized. The intended spearhead of the invasion had been gutted before it ever touched its target. Momentum shifted instantly. What was supposed to be a hammer blow had turned into a collapse of machinery and morale. And as thick smoke rolled across the field, another wave waited in silence. Not the mines beneath the soil this time, but layers of artillery, tanks, and unseen electronic warfare preparing to crush what was left. What happens when an armored regiment suddenly finds itself fighting ghosts, attacked from flank, sky, and ground simultaneously? For the North Korean crews trapped in the burning fields east of Kharkiv, Phase 1 had already gutted their lead wave. But what followed next was not retreat, and it was not randomness. It was Phase 2, An assault unfolded with clockwork precision through Ukraine's three-arm plan. Every arm targeted a weakness the enemy could not shield, and every strike was designed to compound chaos until resistance fractured completely. As columns of smoke rose from the detonated tanks, the first arm opened fire, Bodana artillery. These weren't the slow, imprecise batteries familiar from past wars. Each shell carried GPS guidance linked to drone relays, accurate within feet of its intended hit. The operators didn't paint wide arcs. Instead, they targeted support trucks, mobile command vehicles, and supply carriers huddling behind the tank line. Shrapnel tore open thin armor, engines burst into fireballs, and crews scattered on foot through fields laced with fragments of burning diesel. Infantry tried to regroup near damaged transports, but guidance software had been instructed to correct course mid-flight, maximizing every detonation. Each blast was calculated. Kill the machines, but spread fragments just far enough to bleed out infantry clusters. Meanwhile, hidden inside clusters of trees to the west, Ukrainian Oplot tanks rolled from cover. Operators throttled the engines until steel hulls pushed near 45 miles per hour. Barrel stabilizers kept them steady as they arced toward the flanks of the disoriented force. The moment was chosen to perfection. With the enemy's head turned toward the minefield, Oplot struck the rear and sides simultaneously. Shells slammed into side armor, vulnerable to penetration, ripping exits open through once imposing hulls. Commanders shouted into exploding radios, ordering regroup, but the columns were now being chopped into disconnected sections. Some tanks reversed frantically, only to collide with those trapped behind them. Others shot blindly into fields, striking nothing but smoke. Precision remained the difference. Artillery fired in synchronization with the Oplot's maneuver, shells landing within meters of designated targets. Drone feeds ensured adjustments by the second, no wasted ammunition, no shots spilling randomly into fields. Infantry caught in the blast radius were driven from cover. For those still inside armored carriers, detonation shattered hulls, leaving torn silhouettes hunched in flames. This coupling of mechanized strike with artillery fire compressed time. In less than 90 seconds, 25 T-90s were scraps. But the sky added its own layer. Suicide drones launched from the north began their dive, but Bilmi electronic warfare stations went active. Invisible waves burst across the air, scrambling GPS signals and distorting flight paths. Drones that moments earlier locked onto tank signatures spiraled out of control. Some fell straight to earth, others veered off course and slammed into each other in midair. Above the defenders, automatic six-barrel cannons activated, spewing curtain fire. The sky filled with trails of streaking metal, and drone wreckage rained down as twisted aluminum across the countryside. In 4 minutes, 47 drones were gone, and with them the spear designed to break Ukrainian armor. As if that devastation wasn't enough, the clock ticked toward an even darker moment the invaders never saw coming. Operation Frost Hook waited silent in trenches nearby. Infantry, camouflaged and unmoving, had watched as tanks and artillery ground the offensive into fragments. Their assignment was time for retreat. Not attack against the strong, but collapse of those trying to escape. By the hour's end, Phase 3 would spring its trap, ending not with wrecked tanks, but with a captured colonel and an intelligence haul greater than the steel left behind. Brute force proved useless when it met patience, engineering, and precise coordination. Numerical advantage collapsed in minutes, not hours, as carefully arranged traps dismantled one of the largest armored pushes of the conflict. Every mine, every artillery shell, and every maneuver showed how planning could outweigh sheer numbers. The results were undeniable. $370 million in tanks and vehicles turned into wreckage, a colonel captured alive, and enough intelligence to disrupt several days of enemy operations. Modern war now raises a question. Is victory measured in firepower, or in who builds the smarter battlefield before a single shot is fired?